In today's news, the Prime Minister returns from Chogum and defends several government positions. It was a bloody Monday in the capital with multiple homicides and Bahamian marine biologist at the UN Ocean Conference. Good evening, folks. I'm Jarino Saunders, and this is your JCN Evening News. Thanks for joining us. The Bahamas delegation to the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting, Chogum, in Kigali, Rwanda, is back on Bahamian soil, arriving on Monday from the week-long session. Upon his arrival, Prime Minister Philip Davis, who led the delegation, defended his recent travel, noting that it is bearing fruit as other countries want to strengthen their relationships with the Bahamas, and that is made possible because of his administration's decision to make foreign policy work harder for Bahamians.
Friends, I'm happy to report that our international efforts are bearing fruit. Our voice is being heard. Other countries want to strengthen their relationship with us. Other world leaders and business people want to invest in us. And international organizations want to help us. We are at an inflection point, a moment when we can see our fortunes changing. We are now in the kinds of discussions where we can not only make our needs known, but have our requests honored. The global idea of the Bahamas is shifting, and people want to do business with us.
The Prime Minister also highlights that he was able to exchange views about what is happening in the Bahamas in a number of meetings with other countries and organizations while in Rwanda. His wife, Anne-Marie Davis, was also in Rwanda and spoke to more fair and equal employment for women and gender-based violence. The government was also able to settle formal diplomatic relations with Rwanda, Tuvalu, and Gabon.
In our meetings with the President of Botswana, we agreed to mutually support each other by them helping us to develop our livestock industry and us offering them support again in developing their tourism product. As with so many of the African leaders we met, we recognized each other's faces. People who not only look like us, but people who remind us of specific individuals at home. And as the President of Botswana said, they want to reconnect and strengthen ties with our brothers and sisters who were so cruelly taken from us hundreds of years ago.
The Prime Minister says he hopes the Bahamas will become a bridge between the Caribbean and Africa, while doubling opportunities for Bahamians. And with that, the President of Botswana has accepted the government's invitation to attend celebrations for the Bahamas' 50th anniversary of independence. The Prime Minister also addressing the Bahamas Power and Light CEO Siobhan Cambridge's comments that Bahamians can expect an increase in fuel charges next month or before August. Mr. Cambridge told a local daily recently that BPL will increase its fuel surcharge within the next month or two. Prime Minister Davis says the government is looking for ways to lower any further burden on the Bahamian people. And during the Summit of the Americas and at Chogum, the government had strong representation with the United States to lift the sanctions in Venezuela and other countries who produce oil and gas so that exports can move more freely, reducing the need to increase prices.
The issue of energy security became very large in our discussions. So, for example, the voices of SEGs were being heard about the sanctions being placed on Venezuela. And we're now seeing movements to relieve the sanctions so that the Venezuelan oil and other related products could now be exported from Venezuela. So our voices are being heard. In respect to that, Trinidad, for example, they have a reserve of gas, which was being stagnated because of the relationship they have with Venezuela. We have made strong representations to the U.S. to lift the sanctions in respect to that, and we hope to see that move very soon. So if our efforts to remove the other pressures that feed into increasing the cost of fuel, if those are released, as we expect them to, then there may not be a need for us to consider raising any further bills.
Now, in respects to his meeting with petroleum dealers, Prime Minister Davis says there are some movements during the budget exercise to specifically assist Family Island dealers. However, he notes his government is still in the process of finding ways to see what else they can do to alleviate such high prices at the pumps, recognizing most of the cost relating to fuel is out of the government's control.
What is in our control, and which I have been doing, is letting our voices be heard about some of the initiatives and policies of some of the industrialized world that is causing the increase in oil. Quite apart from the invasion in Ukraine, there are also other issues like the sanctions on Venezuela that has impacted the cost of fuel, particularly for us. If those sanctions are lifted, it helps. And so we have been agitating. We've had two major meetings in respect to that. One at the Summit of Americas in Los Angeles a couple of weeks ago, and at Shogam now, where Canada and UK were present, India, where we made our voices known. Both Boris Johnson, Prime Minister Johnson, and Prime Minister Justin left our meeting to go to the G7, and they are now there, and they are charged to carry our voices with them. And hopefully we should see some relief on that.
Prime Minister Davis notes there have been a number of meetings held with the Finance Secretary, along with the Minister of Economic Affairs, Michael Halkitis, and the petroleum industry, but he has not been briefed on those proceedings as yet. On Monday, Prime Minister Philip Davis was also asked to address concerns surrounding the dwindling NIB fund. He said while they will look to see what is the best way forward in dealing with the NIB issues, it has not been determined if the government would even accept the Insurance Board's recommendations to increase its contribution rate by 2% next month and continue to increase every 2 years until 2036 to ensure financial stability.
The report is nothing new. We expected the same report. They are the technocrats who are advising us. We are the political electorate. We have to find ways and means of softening any increases that are put on the backs of the Bahamian people. I have not seen the latest report, not that I'm surprised by it, but upon reviewing it and having regard to all of the other initiatives that we have in growing the economy and seeking other means of revenues for the country, we'll take that into account to determine what best and how best to deal with the national insurance issues.
Minister of State in the Office of the Prime Minister, Miles LaRota, also responding to a National Insurance Board report recently released. The report stating that the contribution rate is set to increase by 2% starting on July 1st. Before the weekly cabinet meeting today, Minister LaRota says that as a result of the dwindling number of people paying towards the benefits of an individual, the fund is being given out, or the funds rather being given out by NIB are currently greater than that which they are bringing in.
The reality is, years ago we had about 13, almost 14 people that was paying towards the benefits of one person. That number has reduced to, I think, less than half of that, and I think by 2040 it should be about 3.9 persons to one pensioner. We are paying out much more money than we are taking in, and that is the reality. People are living longer, they're receiving more benefits. The ceiling has been raised from $400 in income per week to over $700, and I think there's only been one increase, and so we are where we are.
When speaking on the recommendation from NIB's board to bump the retirement age up from 65 to 67, he reiterated what Prime Minister Davis says, and that is the report itself is only a recommendation.
It's basically saying for the fund to remain solvent, we're going to have to do different things. You're going to have to increase contributions, you're going to have to cut benefits, and you're going to have to increase the retirement age. All of those that's the recommendation. The government could choose what or any part of it that it will implement, and what part that it will not. But from the position of the report, those were the recommendations that were made for the government to consider.
Minister LaRota says depletion of the NIB fund has occurred much faster in recent years, and that the goal now is to find ways to ensure that the fund is saved. In news from the crime front, 3 homicides on Monday adds to the country's overall homicide count. The latest homicides occurring throughout the course of the day on Monday, with the latest incident occurring shortly before midnight at the intersection of Beatrice Avenue and Charles W. Saunders Highway. Police Press Liaison Officer Superintendent Audley Peters says police were alerted to the sound of gunshots at the intersection. When the officers arrived on the scene, they found an unresponsive adult male believed to be in his mid-20s lying in the southern-bound lane on Beatrice Avenue. Emergency medical services visited the scene and following their assessment concluded that there were no signs of life.
Our investigations thus far reveal that a vehicle was at the intersection of Beatrice Avenue and Charles W. Saunders when 3 individuals were having an altercation. One of those individuals produced a firearm and discharged it at 2 of the individuals. Two of the males ran off, and one of the males collapsed on Beatrice Avenue in a southern-bound lane. We're in search of a second suspect or a second victim of that vehicle. The driver then entered the vehicle and sped off, leaving the scene.
While Superintendent Peters says police do not know the motive behind this latest killing, they are following significant leads. Prior to this shooting incident, police were gathering information on another fatal shooting after officers were called to Dean's Lane off Nassau Street sometime after 10 p.m.
On the officers' arrival, they were informed by bystanders that a group of men were gathered in the front of a business establishment. When a mid-sized vehicle drove through, occupants of that vehicle discharged a weapon in the direction of the males, hitting 4 of them. They were all transported to the hospital via private vehicles, where one of the males succumbed to his injuries, and the remaining 3 are considered to be in serious condition.
Earlier on Monday afternoon, police took an adult male into custody following a stabbing death. Superintendent Peters, in updating the reporters, say police were called to a business plaza on Carmichael Road as a result of the stabbing incident. On arrival, officers were directed to a male suffering from injuries consistent with knife wounds. The victim was transported to the hospital and later succumbed to his injuries. Initial investigations revealed that there was an altercation between 2 men, resulting in one of them producing a knife and stabbing the other man several times about the body. Police say a male is assisting them with their investigations. With a number of homicides in the last 24 hours and murders in the country approaching 70 for the year, questions have arisen regarding the vexing crime issue in the Bahamas. And although the court system has been a part of the problem, Minister of National Security Wayne Munro believes the issue runs deeper. We hear more from the minister in this next report by Cale Campbell.
Within the last 24 hours, the country's homicide count increased by 3 as criminal investigators have launched investigations into 3 murders that occurred on Monday. National Security Minister Wayne Munro, while speaking with reporters just before the weekly cabinet meeting, says the concern shouldn't be that there is a spat of murders happening, but that they happen at all. The minister referenced the latest killing at the intersection of Beatrice Avenue and Charles W. Saunders Highway, noting concern for the actual presence of a firearm and lack of conflict resolution.
The overarching issue is that we are raising young men mainly, and oft-time infrequently women, who see nothing absolutely wrong with just shooting someone down. That should be what should be troubling to us, because we are raising them. They're not raising themselves, we are raising them. They are our children. They are our sons. They live amongst us. They live amongst us with these weapons. So when we take responsibility for what we do and what happens around us, we will be able to address it.
Minister Munro says tests and studies on at-risk youth were conducted, with the data analyzed in 2016 as part of the National Development Plan, Vision 2040, devised under the last Christie administration, one of its 4 pillars being social policy.
We came up with Vision 2040, which was a collective effort of everyone, and it sets out how we are supposed to go about addressing youth at risk. And I would invite everyone to read it, because it gives each one of us a role in this. So you have organized civil society, and you have each one of us with a responsibility. And we just have to start to look now at how we're addressing that. We support the persons who step forward to run their programs with expertise, in some instances with funding, but we require people to raise properly adjusted children, because if you raise murderers, you will have murderers amongst us.
When questioned that allegedly 30 of the 65 killed this year were persons on bail for murders, Minister Monroe says knowing where someone is 24/7 does not stop someone from being murdered, adding that it could be an indication of retaliation or the person being involved in an at-risk lifestyle.
So everyone is innocent until proven guilty. But if I'm a gangbanger and I get charged with murder and I get bail and I come out and continue that behavior, my murder may be related to something I've done since I've come out. The police do a very good job at investigating these things and getting intelligence and trying to show what is retaliation, because that may then set up the fact that you're going to have a domino effect of murders in a short period of time. And so that's a job they do very well. And that's what they always look at when they find a murder. But yes, 30 out of 65 persons who were murdered, but that was at the point of the Defense Force. Marines murder was the 65th, so we've added 3 since then. But 30 of that number were persons on bail.
Minister Monroe references his time as a practicing lawyer, explains that bail applicants, whose life may possibly be at risk, argue that it should be their choice to deal with, resulting in those persons being released on bail unless the prosecution can prove that there is a threat to the bail applicant's life. For JCN News, I'm Cale Campbell.
Thanks for that report, Cale. The country's judiciary reached a major milestone with its opening of the Bahamas Judicial Education Institute Training Center on Friday. The new training center will be instrumental in fulfilling the need for preparation of judicial officers and their staff, and thereby enhancing the delivery of justice in the country. Creation of the training center was facilitated by a loan from the Inter-American Development Bank and executed through the Ministry of National Security via its Citizen Security and Justice Program, or CSJP. The commissioning ceremony was held at the Bahamas Judicial Education Institute, Charlotte House, downtown. In attendance were Chief Justice Sir Brian Morey, Minister of National Security Wayne Monroe, Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs Senator Ryan Pinder. Delivering the opening address was Chairman of the Institute, Justice Ian Winder, who said although training requirements have always been met, accommodations have always been less than ideal, and the new facility, equipped with plug-and-play devices, laptops, and state-of-the-art audio-visual equipment, is much needed. The Chief Justice said the facility marks an important step in improving the country's judicial system, but noted that there is still much work to be done. The Attorney General said the center is supported by both the Bahamas Bar Association and the Office of the Attorney General and will greatly benefit attorneys. The Minister of National Security said the initiative is part of a component number 3 in the objective of the Citizen Security and Justice Program, and he wishes the Institute success. We'll take a break here, and we'll be right back after these commercials.